Kurt, I'm really excited today to talk about the Accelerator system. So, if you're watching this video, you have booked a call to speak with us, and we just wanted to have a moment to speak with you, tell you all about the system and what it is that we're so excited about offering. And then when we get on the call with you, we just want to focus on you, your situation, hear about your story, and how you're using Power Apps and how you're moving forward, and then how we can help. But something that will help out is that you know a little bit about what is we're offering and all the benefits that we're sort of bringing to the table here, right? So you've probably already seen a video where we talk about keys to your success. Kurt, do you remember all the keys to the success that we talked? I mean, we probably talked about 30, 45 minutes about the keys to people's success. We're letting on to a lot of the things that took us a few decades to learn collectively.
That's right.
And we sort of distilled them and we shared them with everybody, you know.
There's so many of them. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we distilled it down to a good 3 or 4.
That's right.
And so I'm just going to open this up. And so if you guys have seen that video recently, these were the big 4 things I felt that we sort of show people. Okay. So there's always this temptation. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this first item here, not going it alone. There's a huge temptation to go it alone because you have YouTube, and a lot of people find me through YouTube. Yeah. And when you're learning something new, you go pick up a book, or you go find a YouTube video or some type of material, and you go it alone, and you're trying to teach yourself. Have you ever heard somebody, "Oh, I'm self-taught"? Well, how do you know that you were taught right? How do you know that you don't have some holes in your knowledge and your experience? I guess that's one of the downfalls of being self-taught. A lot of people talk about that, say that sort of in a prideful way, like, yeah, I did it, But I think if I were to teach myself something, I wouldn't necessarily know if there was anything that I was missing,
Yeah. I would suspect 2 things. Number one, that most of the people that are watching this have already been going on it alone, and they've already been doing the YouTube thing. And that's why they're here right now, because it just doesn't work. It works at some level, but not to the level that you need to have real success. It just doesn't.
Yeah, typically when I find people, when people reach out to me like, "Hey, I really would like to work with you. I really need some help. I think you could help me out a great deal." And typically they've got themselves a project they've been working on, and it's just it's a mess because you weren't aware of the pitfalls, things that you're going to encounter that I know that me, you, Kurt, anybody would come across in a Power Apps project, a software development project, that come up almost every single time. And if it's your first 1 or 2 times, you might think that, this is there's you either start to blame yourself or you blame the person that you're working with, maybe that's asking you to do the application. There's all kinds of things that happen that we've identified that we like to sort of give you the lay of the land, sort of as your guide, So your clients, your users, the department heads that you're writing apps for, they're very vague in their requirements and their description of what they want you to build.
Right.
And then they're laser specific once they start seeing some visuals. Once you start, cranking out those screens and put your heart, your soul, your blood, sweat, and tears into a little app, and the first time they see it, it's like, oh, well, how do you handle X and Y? Well, what's X and Y? Oh, that's that process that we do around here every day. And that needs to be in there as well. And there's all kinds of little things like that might trip you up.
Right.
So that's something that's it's easy to just sort of mention, but there's a lot of pitfalls out there that can cause a lot of problems. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, not only that, it's not just the pitfalls, because there's a lot of pitfalls, and there's a reason why things are done a certain way, because of the pitfalls, right? And because of the fact that you and I have done these things for so many years, we've seen it come. We see it coming. We already know what. And there's a way that there's a method to the way we do things to avoid all those pitfalls, and we try to show how to do that. But also it's about fundamental learning to not just about avoiding the pitfalls, but by just creating more success, by making things more efficient and more user friendly, and just all that, more professional.
You know what scares me most of all, Kurt? Bugs.
I hate bugs. I just hate
and I'm not talking about those little insects with six. I don't even like the ones with 8 legs.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about them. I'm scared of spiders. Okay, so you're talking about computer bugs. Okay, yeah.
I'm talking about the bugs that you create whenever you got a line of code to write. Yeah. Guys, Microsoft can't even write an operating system without a single bug.
No.
How many update notifications do you have? What?
I read somewhere where Microsoft, and this was years ago, that there was 3%. If they said, if our software is 3% bugs, 3% of our software has bugs, that's acceptable. 3% was the acceptable ratio. And it's kind of turned into an industry standard that if you can be below 3% of your code being bug free, then you're okay.
Wow.
I thought
that's crazy.
It's kind of interesting.
It is interesting. What freaks me out about bugs, Kurt, is the amount of time. I remember working with you over 20 years ago, and I would code myself into a corner that you warned me about. You would warn me, Darren, don't code yourself into a corner.
Yeah.
And I had this idea of maybe creating an object or creating some code. Maybe I created a function or a subroutine, and I didn't design it right.
Right.
And then as the thing grew and I had to create more things, more screens that used that great idea that I had, it started to fail and it started to introduce bugs. And then I had to debug and troubleshoot. And sometimes when you find a bug and you're like, after you figure out, you recreate it, you find it, you analyze it, you might come to the realization that you have to redo a whole component to take account of something that it wasn't taking account for, and that's the bug, right?
Right. And you got to redesign a lot of things. Something might have to be completely redesigned based on what you found too. So it turns into a big old thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So those things scare me. And there's all kinds of things that I do, Kurt, to prevent bugs. You stick to the recommended coding standards by Microsoft and others that have been found out in the industry. I could talk for a while about that, but let's move on talking about plan for success.
Yeah.
As the saying goes, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And something that sounds so simple, so cutesy to say, there's a lot of truth to that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that we try to, we guide our students and make sure that they have a plan for success. And that is based on where they're at, where they're trying to go. Each student has their own individualized goal that they want to reach. We're going to talk about goals and timelines here in a few minutes. But planning for success is, you might think, oh, yeah, I want to plan for success. No, that you actually need to do some due diligence there and make sure you begin with the end in mind. It's one of the 7 habits of highly effective people, and then validation.
What a great book that was. That was a great book.
Absolutely. Yeah. I had a lot of really good stuff in there. Definitely recommend that book. But validation from mentors, Kurt, you were it for me, man. You were it. So you taught a class at the community college, and that was my learning environment that my whole profession was based on. I learned a lot of good stuff from other instructors, but it seemed like you were the missing key that I needed to sort of jumpstart or accelerate my career. And you have inspired me, I would say, through ever since, Kurt, you have inspired me. And years later, I've told you about the effects of how you taught and the decisions that you made while you were teaching that class. You taught me such good programming practices. I always felt like I had a little Kurt on my shoulder. Now, are you proud of how you wrote that loop? That always challenges me. So you guys work with us for very long. You might end up having Darren on one shoulder and Kurt on the other, and
right.
People typically think of an angel and something else, but hopefully you'll have two angels on your shoulders. Go ahead.
When you talk about validation, a lot of times people think about validation being like, what is good about what you've done? What is, it's a validating experience, meaning it's brought like it's a compliment type thing. And sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes the validation is in we're validating that this isn't done as slick as you could make it. That we're validating that you could do this a little bit better, and also when you get to that point where, Darren, you did a pretty good job on this one. That those words come by they're not taken lightly, because you've gone through a lot of work to get to that point. You know what I mean? And the bottom line is we made you work. You worked hard. And I say we, I know I did, but you took the other side of that. You said, I'm going to listen to what this guy's got to say, and I'm going to try to do it his way one time, because I tried to do it my way and it probably didn't work. So I'm going to try it his way. And so you listened to that and you got it. And then you became super strong from it, and so that's where that validation is. And I remember being by myself, not going alone. I remember going at it alone and just wondering, what's it take to be a professional programmer, man? What does it take? Is what I'm doing, is it good enough to be a professional out there in the world? And it goes beyond just getting paid for it, or, because they say, well, you're a professional when you get paid to do something. That's when you're a professional. Or what makes a good program? We talked about that a lot. So how do I know when I've done this well? Well, I go take a class, and I have these instructors teach me. And if they can tell me that I've done it right, well, then maybe I'm on the right track.
Or give you an A or a B.
If it's not an easy A. If it's not an easy A.
If everybody in the class got an A, then how do you know where you really stand, right?
And right. And there's been so many of those college platforms and upper education platforms that do that. They just say, hey, if your money's green, we're going to give you the good grade so that you can get your certification. And so now your certification is just watered down, So I really wanted my classes to be hard, super hard, to where you couldn't get an A. And so if you got a B, you did really well. And so that's kind of like what I kind of feel like that's kind of what we're trying to build here, is something that's going to make you work for it. And then when you get that A, you got it, man. You're going to be a professional, Yeah.
Yeah. And what I did here, I just added this as we were talking. It says validation or evaluation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you can't get validation, what about getting an evaluation? Find out where you're at.
Right. If I'm not good, so where am I? What am I doing wrong? The evaluation is, okay, if I'm not getting this right, what's it take to get it right? That's what we're going to be able to do. And you talked about painting yourself in a corner. Hopefully we're going to create scenarios where people are going to paint themselves into a corner, code themselves in their corner here in this lab. So they're not doing it out there in the real world. So they're going to learn those lessons that you learned, and you're going to do that through the evaluation process.
Absolutely. So these were the keys to success that we touched on in a previous one, and they're so important that you need to keep that in mind as we move forward, and how the rest of these points that we bring up here in the next few minutes, how they relate back to those, because they're super important.
Yep.
Absolutely. I like to talk about one-on-one tutoring, because this is really where people start to reach out, is when they get into trouble, they've taken on a project, their boss has asked them to write an app with Power Apps. Hey, this is a citizen developer tool. Why don't you just jump in there and write us an app? And sometimes the thought is, I need help. Maybe they're not thinking about these. Well, they went it alone. They had nobody give them pitfall awareness, no plan, and now they need somebody to look at their app. And this is where Fiverr came in. So I first started doing some, during the COVID lockdowns. I went to Fiverr.com and created an account and say, hey, I can do Power Apps. And at first there were a lot of business owners and stuff like, hey, can you build this app? Can you build this app? Sure. And then started coming in the requests for help, like, hey, can you tutor me? And I've got this problem. I've got this problem. I've got this problem. And what I found there was obviously I have a very finite, I can spell here, finite, is how you spell finite, amount of time. Okay. So as these requests come in for my time over and over and over again, I started charging the rate that I was charging my employer as a contractor. Which was a certain amount. And then it started to get to the point where when people would message me like, okay, you can tutor me? Great. Yeah. Okay. When can we meet? Today? And they're like, whoa, I've already got stuff going on, And then I started to think to myself, a lot of the people that are coming to me for help, they're in emergency mode. They got a problem right now and they need a fix right now. And that's why they're willing to pay money to get my help. Okay. So then I had to, not that I was trying to make more money, but in order to make it sense, to have it make more sense to me and for them, is it needs to reflect what they were expecting, which was for me to drop everything and me get on a Zoom call at night, or, whenever I had a free moment that day or the next day. And so my rates kept on going up and the demand just kept coming in to the point where I was almost charging as much as an attorney would charge. And you might think, oh, that's a good problem to have. No, I wouldn't say it actually ended up being a thing. One of the things that I learned in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is look for win-win situations. And it was actually turning into almost a lose-lose situation. Okay. My hourly rate out on Fiverr just for one-on-one tutoring is $250 an hour. And when you're thinking about it and you're in the middle of dire straits with your project, $250 can seem like a very small amount if I can just get this problem fixed, So I get in on these calls and, they only want to book 1 hour because they think, oh, well, an hour is a long time. But you get in there and people will talk about their project and their problems and this and that. They're just going through it all. And then they could spend half that hour just talking, maybe even 45 minutes to 50 minutes, leaving me 10, 15, 20 minutes to actually solve the problem. Yeah. And then, at the end of 1 hour, I wanted to get them to a good spot. And it just felt like it wasn't very fulfilling for me because I wanted to see people have success. I wanted them to like, oh, wow. I want to see the light bulbs go on. And I wanted to see people's long-term success. One of my favorite movies, it's an older movie called Jerry Maguire. It's got Tom Cruise in it. If you haven't seen the movie, I would highly recommend watching it. But Tom Cruise is a pro athlete manager, and instead of being this part of this huge firm that managed a lot of pro athletes, he had this moment of clarity where he wrote a paper and he stuck it in everybody's inbox in a hotel at a conference and saying how they all need to spend more time with their clients, more individualized time, give them more time and attention, and not treat their clients like numbers. I feel like, out on YouTube, I've got 10,000 subscribers. I guess some people are like, wow, that's a huge following. It's like, but it feels like it's a one-way type of communication. And I might be helping 10,000 people over a given period of time, but I don't get to see them where they're like, oh, this is good. And I don't get to see their project and their success over the long term and stuff. So what I wanted to do is change my model from this one-on-one where what I would say like a lose-lose. And in some cases, I felt like, a 1 hour tutoring was a lot of money for people,
Darren, we're talking just a little bit more about that lose-lose thing. It's where that comes from. And I can see that happening too, because what are you going to get done in an hour, really? Not a lot, even if you can just get right to it, but so people always remember how you make them feel, and if you go in there and you can just get something done, sort of like just halfway done, and you just kind of had to do it most of the time. Usually they're in on an emergency. It's an emergency situation. They have to have this thing done by tomorrow morning, and you don't have the time to really figure it out or work it out. So you're trying to find a quick workaround. So you're putting a Band-Aid on this thing, and it's not going to be good. And they're going to remember that. Now, it's not necessarily a diss on you. They're not going to say, well, Darren wasn't, he wasn't bad, but it just, I just got. So people are going to remember, though, that it was just not that great. Whereas you're not giving your best quality work as a teacher, as a tutor, or as a software developer. You're not doing your best work. Not in the 11th hour. You're just not doing it. So I see where it turns into a lose-lose situation, man.
Yeah. I found that I can be more of an agent of good and providing a lot more value if I can be more involved at the beginning of a new project and actually show them the things. So I wanted more of a long term. I want to be committed to a client or student more on the long term than just a short term. Like, boom, they got themselves into a mess. Now I'm like a firefighter. I'm going to show up to the fire and try to put it out. And then we'll talk about maybe the house we're going to build on in that area where the old house burned down or was torn down, or you know what I mean? Because sometimes when things are designed wrong, you almost have to start from the beginning or take a few steps back at least. Kurt, I know you've been in the software industry. Has it ever happened to you where you're asked to take on somebody else's project and you're like, well, it might take less time if I were just to rewrite this properly or design it properly. Have you ever come across that situation?
Almost every time that I've had to take on somebody else's program, it's been a rewrite at some level. It's almost always because either it wasn't documented well enough, or it wasn't the structures weren't set up just the way they needed to be in the front of it. It was usually somebody had a Band-Aid, got put on it to get it done because there was a crunch time. So
yeah. So one of my first jobs, I don't know if I've ever told you this story, Kurt. This might be the first time you've ever heard this out of my mouth. One of my first jobs was working at Pizza Hut. And
first time ever.
I was closing. I was working full time, and I was closing up the dining room. I was a server at Pizza Hut, and I was closing with this manager, and he was a new manager to that location, and he told me after all the customers left, he goes, Darren, I want you to wipe off all the tables in this dining room. And then I want you to unscrew every salt, pepper, red pepper flake shaker, and oregano. Unscrew them all and fill them all up. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And it was a completely different mind shift. It's like, no, when I close the store, everybody that comes in later that week will know that I closed the store because there's not a single shaker that's. And I just gave him this look like, are you kidding? Like, you want me to like redo everything that probably only needs to be done like once a month or something, And he said, Darren, listen to me. People always have time to do it right the second time. That's always stuck with me. Everybody's in a rush the first time. Yep. Then everybody has time to do it right the second time. Isn't
that the way the software industry works too? I just wish there was more opportunity to be able to get on projects, like you said, in the beginning level of things. And I wish deadlines weren't so hard set. As soon as somebody puts a deadline on something, you've lost creativity and you've lost ingenuity, man, because now people are just going to hurry up and get things done, and yeah.
So I'd like to talk more about this long-term commitment.
Yeah.
You know what? I want to hear about what your goals are. And when I say your, I'm talking about you guys that are watching this, the students, my clients, my future clients. What are your goals? Do you want to be a freelancer? Do you want to be, do you want to get that Power Apps job? do you want to sell the perfect app idea that you have and, sell your software? What are your commitments? I want to have a vested interest in your long-term success. You know, I believe business comes down to relationships. And Kurt, I that's exactly what happened between you and me. Is that you helped me out? You taught a man to fish. I was in maybe my mid 20s, and you really helped me out, and you got a lifelong friend
Yeah.
to
Yep.
stick around. Those are the best type of friends, I
That's it.
believe.
Yep. Yep. Like
Um,
values, like goals. Yep.
yeah. And yeah, when you guys sign up with this accelerator program, we will have an onboarding assessment where you will be with me, Kurt. You'll also be assigned a a customer advocate or student advocate, and you'll probably become more familiar with them because they're going to be checking in on you, make sure, or taking a pulse on where you're at in your projects, how you're doing, if you need to schedule something with either Kurt or myself. And but that first onboarding, we're going to sit there with you and we're going to find out your long-term goals, ultimately you're trying to do in 12 months, what you're trying to do this month, this week. What's your next thing that's due for you? Are you meeting with your manager to show them a power app that isn't done yet? Are you meeting with them tomorrow morning? We want to hear about that, and we will try our best to help you wherever you're at, because chances are you're probably in a bad spot. That's probably why you started looking for help. So we want to help you wherever you're at, but also make sure at the end of 12 months, we want to commit to you for a full 12 months. And it might take you just 6 months to get to your goals. Okay. Sometimes things happen in life, and you might, have some things going on where you can't commit as much time this month, but next month you can. You never know what life is going to throw your way. So
Never
I
know.
like to, put a 12-month period out there where I feel like I can help anyone reach that goal. And if I don't, and if I feel like I can't get you there, when I meet you, as far as in, there's no prerequisites, but if I feel like that I can't get you there, then I'll tell you that, and I feel that, you know, 12 months is more than enough time to reach these goals, you know.
Okay.
I've got here this item called MOC course. Is there anything that you wanted to add to that at all, Kurt? A lot of times you've got like a different spin on maybe my thoughts or what I'm talking about that really adds to it. We really complement each other in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. So just talking about long-term commitment.
Yeah. I I guess the only thing I was going to add anything to what you said, because I think you said it well. I think the only thing that I would like to add to that maybe is that hopefully um, we're going to be building, like you said, business is about relationships, and hopefully, we're gonna even know you even after the 12 months is over. That we're gonna hear about your successes, and we're gonna maybe work together on projects, and just who knows where life goes. But what we're doing is we're building a group of like-minded people who are passionate about programming in general and very passionate about trying to learn how to program in Power Apps. That's kind of what we're trying to do here, and we're going to be leveraging that with each other. I think it's going to be a great deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So MOC course, what is an MOC course? Well, MOC stands for, in this context, Microsoft Official Curriculum. Um, a lot of times people will get interested in learning a new Microsoft technology, maybe even get certified in it, and they'll go to their local training company that does instructor led training. Um, and what you'll find is back in around 2005, I was teaching a lot of Microsoft official curriculum as a Microsoft certified trainer. And for a 5-day course, you'd come in at 8 or 9 o'clock. The class would start at 9 a.m. You'd have an hour, maybe an hour and a half lunch, and then we'd end by 4 or 5. Um, So it was a 5-day course, 40 hours of instruction, and that would sell for like 1995, close to $2,000. And I was just looking some things up here online. Here just for in the Orlando area, New Horizons is a good reputable company that has this type of training. And if you go look for, so this is 4 days, 32 hours, that's 2,300. But let's go find a 5 days. 5 days, 40 hours. It's going for 3,000, and maybe that takes into account inflation. I know some companies actually charge more along the lines of 3,500 for a full week long course, and you can find on demand courses that are whole week long for maybe 1,000 or two. So it varies a little bit, but if you're looking for good quality um, training in very technical type of expertise, you can do your research and find out how much that is, you know. And so, as far as in a long term commitment, what I found when I would teach a 5-day course is it could have been on SQL Server or Visual Basic, C Sharp or something. And there'd be practical exercises, but they weren't real world projects.
Right.
And there'd be some lab time. I'd come around and try to help them out. But after that week, it was done. They could email me afterwards or whatever, but it was all Microsoft official curriculum stuff that Microsoft had created. Um, Kurt, what I liked about your course when I learned programming from you is there were a lot of elements that I told you when I asked you to come on full time with me, that you brought those elements into what I wanted to offer
Right.
my students. So number one is you brought a, a real a real world aspect, a real world perspective to a lot of this type of stuff. Where in a lot of my other classes, it was all very sanitized, and I was always afraid. Well, I got my first job. Are we going to be doing something silly like just from the labs I was learning in the other classes? Your classes, they dealt with data driven things. I know at the end of your first semester, you would say, listen, guys, it all comes down to reading a record and writing a record. And if you could do these few little things to understand this database table relates to this one, this is how you read this. And this is how you modify a record. If you could do this type of stuff, you guys could work right beside me working in the job that I work right now.
Yeah.
And that became my goal. Yeah. And you taught in a way that all of us students were sitting there hanging on your every word, and we'd go out for a fresh air break, to get up and stretch our legs. And my fellow students, it felt like I was in like a little community, So you had you taught well according to real world examples. You gave us practical exercises that would mimic real world situations. And then you fostered a community type of environment.
Yep.
And
those are the tenets right there.
Yeah.
Those are the tenets. I just real quick, Darren, that MOC course stuff, I've dealt with them many times in my life, different places, different subjects, but I've never really been. They have a feeling of a revival more than they have of actual learning, right? You get excited, you're in there, you're focused, you're hyper focused for 4 or 5 days, and you're learning some things. But what are you really learning? What can you really learn? What can you really absorb in that amount of time? That's the course that you took with me through the college. It took weeks to learn some of that stuff, man. Those concepts just don't, you've got to be able to go out there and learn it. And then you got to go out there and do it and practice it and fail and go back and figure it out. And it's a process. And then you talked about the whole community thing and,
Something else I remember working for Microsoft partners, a lot of times they would have me sit through some of these classes. Like, Darren, we need you to understand more the networking side of things. Go ahead and sit in this week-long class on Active Directory, and I learned some things there. But there were a lot of things that were taught that okay, wow, this is exciting. I now know how to do this. And like a week or a month later, well, Darren, you sat in the class, you know this. I'm like, if you don't use it, you lose it.
That's
That's why
right.
it's so important that you have good, practical, real world based labs and practicals to sort
Yeah.
of drive home the concepts that you're learning.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this stuff, you take these official curriculum courses, you don't use them, you lose them.
And that's kind of what you've been building here. You've been building here with this program that we've been doing. You have all the tenets of it right there. You know, um, you, you learn programming by programming, not by Darren and Kurt teaching you, telling you how to do it, or by reading it in a book or looking on YouTube. You
Yeah,
you got to write programs to learn how to program. You know.
absolutely. So, based on that, the onboarding session that we have with you, we will give you an individualized learning plan. So, not everybody. Sometimes we get questions like, "Okay, does everybody start at the same start and
Right.
start with chapter one, and everybody does, sort of like maybe a community college type of class?" The answer is no, because it just doesn't make sense, because somebody it could be in the program for a few months and you just signed them today. You start wherever you are at based on the assessment. Okay, so if you're an absolute beginner, yeah, you're going to start from the beginning, and we'll have you do certain things and recommend things based on even absolute beginners and power ups. Perhaps they have a background in managing projects or being a business analyst, or maybe you're a database expert, but you just don't have any power app skills. Well, there are still things that we might recommend you start at the beginning, but you could skip
Right.
over module 4 and 5 because of other experience that you have.
Right. But I think it's important, just really quick, to know that you're never behind. You might have to start at the beginning, but you're not behind the 5 or 6 people that started before you, or the 20 people before. You start where you start, and you're going through the process at your pace and your time. The school starts with you. That's where it starts. It starts with you at your time. You're the first day, of your school.
Yeah.
Right.
So like when you go sign up for a martial arts class, a karate class, taekwondo, or some self-defense class, typically start off as a white belt. And they're not going to say, "Oh, we're not accepting any new students, any new white belts until, 6 months down the road or something." No, you come in, you sign up, and you're learning white belt things, or,
Yep.
um, you know, maybe
Yep.
all the orange or the yellow belt stuff, and you can pass that test through the assessment or whatever and move on or be fast tracked. But we do meet with you, we do find out where you're at and recommend where to go based on that. And the fact that there might be a few black belts in your class is actually a benefit to you.
Absolutely.
There's more people
Absolutely.
there beside you, like, hey, go out your punch like this, you know or more like this, or I don't know. I'm just thinking of examples of. I've taken a lot of martial arts classes, and you do benefit from having. You don't benefit from being surrounded by a bunch of other white belts, because they're making all kinds. So sometimes the instructor says to do something, punch, and you're like, yeah, and then everybody else has got their arms straight. You're like, oh, but
Yeah.
if they're white belts, they probably don't know any better
Is it,
anyway. But if you're
isn't that
surrounded by black belts, you're only white belt, you're like, oh, everything they're all doing the exact same thing. Maybe I
yeah.
should do it the way that they're doing it. What were you saying?
Isn't that the goal of a good businessman? A good business plan is to surround yourself with people that are at least as strong as you, if not stronger than you, at whatever it is you're trying to do. Because that's kind of what we're trying to build here. Is we're building a platform of people that have strengths in different areas. They come from all different walks of life and all different places, and we're actually building on the strengths of each other in this thing. That's one of the beauties of what's being built here, Darren.
Absolutely. So we are going to touch on an online community, because I felt like you're sort of describing like what we have. We have an online community, and we have a whole platform. All right, well, let's touch on this learn through doing. I'm going to expand this point here and move this
Very good.
list up
Yeah.
here.
Oh, real quick, Darren, just one more thing.
Mhm.
When we talk about those individualized learning plans, I just guess I just want to make sure that people understand that it's a two-pronged approach, right? So your individualized learning plans. We're talking about fundamentals here. We're going to be teaching you the fundamentals of the Power Apps language, but then and programming practices and database technology. But we're also going to be working with you, helping you through the projects that you have working. Many of you guys have projects that you're working on in your work where you're working at right now, and you're struggling with some of them in some different places. So we're going to be able to help with that too. So it's a two-pronged thing going on here, just and everybody's different within that. So yeah,
absolutely,
very cool.
So this actually touches on a lot of the successes that I saw that you showed me while you were teaching your classes. You had labs. I interacted with my fellow students in your class. Also, we have your projects. So this is something that differs from the community college in which you taught at. Yeah. You're coming in, we have labs, you're going to be interacting not only with us instructors, but also your fellow students, okay? But you're going to be bringing your projects into the program, and we'll take you through planning and doing the project properly. And you're going to be learning by working on your own project rather than going it alone, right? And we have other real projects. We have some templates out there, some already built apps. Like we've got a fairly decent sized ticketing system that you actually get access to. You get access to all the courses that I have available out there. But other real projects, could involve things that we come up with in the group. Like, for example, if you think of a situation, one of the stories I have is somebody came to detail our car. We bought this used car at a place, and it was a little dirty on the inside. We were sort of surprised they had a car that was not really clean or anything, and say, well, hey, it's sort of dirty, like, okay, listen, we're gonna knock off $150. You can spend that $150 on an auto detailer. So we did that, and the guy came and he cleaned out our car, and I was just noticing how professional, how much passion he had for what he did. And I'm like, I'm just always thinking about data and how it drives people's business. I'm like, hey, how do you keep track of all your customers? And do you have some type of system? He goes, he just held up his phone. I'm like, I just store them on my contacts. I'm like, alongside your friends and your family's contact information? He goes, yeah. And I'm like, oh man. And I start to think, well, people that go to people's houses to do auto detailing might need something that somebody does lawn mowing might need. Or let's say during COVID, there were a lot of hairstylists, people would cut hair at people's houses. They need to keep track of their customers and where they live and the services that are provided. And they might keep track of their expenses and the different sales and sessions. And so that's an example of a real world project that you could build and you can implement. It's like the ticketing system that I built months ago. Almost every organization needs a ticketing type of system. So a lot of these programs, these real projects can be applied to different situations, So there's a lot of learning through doing in this Accelerator program.
That's right. And Darren, I just want to say that I believe that is the real crux, the meat and potatoes of what you're offering here. That's what you just said right there is what separates you from a lot of other people, I think, out there. And most everybody that's watching this, they've already gone through the University of Google and YouTube, and there's a difference between going out there and watching a video on how to do something from a pristine environment, and then you go out there and you try to make it work on your own within your own project, the parameters of your own project, and it doesn't work, and you don't know the fundamentals. You can't think. You said back before I came to work for you, you said that, Kurt, I feel like I'm missing something here. I've got plenty of people clicking my videos. I got plenty of people watching my videos, but I just feel like people are just cutting and pasting the stuff that I'm doing, and they're not really learning what they need to be learning. And I really feel like this is what the bridge is right here. This what you're doing right here is the bridge to that. Yeah. We have to go to be a good software developer or computer programmer. You have to go beyond just watching a video and seeing how something is done. That's important. But being able to think for yourself is within these so much of programming is problem solving and thinking around problems and circumventing issues and finding workarounds. And you're not going to be able to do that just by watching YouTube. You got to go through this process. And I really think that this is a great platform that you're setting up here, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so one of the key components to the Accelerator system is the online community. And we have a whole platform that I would like to share with you guys. So we use a platform that is called School.
This is a big
Right now
deal
it's
here.
in School. Yeah, let me size this up so people can see it a little better here. Maybe zoom out a little bit. Be helpful. Okay, so here we go. And I also absolutely love this platform. It's a little bit like a Facebook group, but it's a lot better than a Facebook group. There's no advertisements and distractions, and
Nope.
You can have posts here. What's great is I can host all the video content here. So if you have a question, you can come in here and post the question. You can, a lot of times in YouTube video comments, people can't post their screenshots or little recordings of the screen of what's going on, but here you actually can. It's much easier to do that here. And you can go in here and comment on people's posts. If I go over to here to Classroom, you'll see all the video content. So the Power Performance Accelerator, this has got a lot of the material that is in Accelerator, but you have access to all my other stuff. You know, my Ultimate Jumpstart Kit, if you're familiar with that. It's part of my secret sauce. I start every project off with my own Jumpstart Kit that took me months to develop. So you have access to all that. You can customize it as much as you'd like. The ticketing course, I sell that just individually for $1,000. That is a course that teaches you how to build, and also you get my project file with that. You could actually implement that for a company and sell it for $8,000 or $10,000 if you add on to it. Maybe it could be more like a $15,000 project that you do for a company. You know, of course I got the crash course down here as well. You get access to pretty much everything that I have. So here within the Accelerator, there's all kinds of great stuff in here. We have all of our weekly calls that you can go out to. So you can go back and watch anything that we've done in the past. We have, a calendar of all of our events. Right now, we've just been adding more and more to it. So right now we've been having a Wednesday night group call, 5 p.m. EST. And then we have our Saturday morning live stream. And as an Accelerator student, you're invited to come on as a panelist to interact with me and Kurt and ask your questions in real time.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. So, and then we also have a Thursday lunch and learn follow up to our Wednesday night call. So right now there's 3 different sort of meetups, and then if there's a topic that we currently don't have either a module or a lesson for, you know what, we'll call a new session and invite everyone in the program to it, and we will discuss that new topic. So there's lots of opportunity to learn, to grow, to collaborate with each other, and to conquer this platform, the Power Apps platform, the Power platform itself. So speaking of which, we do have our own separate Office 365 tenant / environment. Sometimes the people will use those words interchangeably, tenant and environment. You're going to actually get your own environment within our tenant, if that makes it any more clear. A tenant is something typically you have one of as an organization. So I've created my own Office 365 tenant for my Accelerator students. So everybody gets their own environment. Okay, they get full access to their own sandbox. They get their own Dataverse database. They get their own SharePoint site or sites, and you are an owner of your individual site or sites. You can have more than one if you want. Typically, if you're going to use SharePoint as a data source, I recommend that you have one site per application or per database. Not just use one site and throw everything in there. So if you want more sites created, you're more than welcome to it. And I turn all the options on. So probably wherever you're currently at, maybe you already have a job where the IT department likes to say no and turn all the options off and not allow you to get in, and maybe you don't have the premium licensing. Well, you get all of that in our tenant. Everything's turned on. You got access to everything that you need to have access to learn and to play around with these tools, and to master them. So, all right, several levels of support, not just one. So I showed you the school community. So you can reach out. You can put a post out there and say, "Hey, I'm having an issue with this. Does anybody know how to accomplish this?" Or I've got this error. And Kurt and I are pretty good at keeping on top of that whenever we see somebody post out there.
Yep.
But what's great is you're going to find that some of your fellow students have already had that issue, already know the answer, maybe already received help from us, and they'll jump in and give you the answer. So that's actually a great benefit that you guys help each other out. But if not, of course, you've got us instructors to help you out as well. You got email support. So you could always reach us at support at us. We do have the Zoom and the team calls, the restream calls, the live streams, and all that type of stuff. And there are some one-on-one calls that happen, like the onboarding call. We do have individual check-ins just to make sure that you're moving along, you're making progress, you're learning what you need to do to reach that goal at the end of the program, and make sure that you get there and that you succeed.
And if there's anything that we can do better, if we're trying to check in to make sure that we're constantly trying to improve our delivery, our approach to things, and so, feedback's important.
Yeah, if there's something that we can do extra or do something in a different way that would benefit you, then we want to know about that.
Yeah. That's one thing. That's one of the things I think that really I like about working with you, Darren. It's like you and I, we have the same philosophy on that we take responsibility for the things that we talk about. So if somebody's not getting it, if somebody's failing, if somebody's not making it work, the first thing we wonder is how can we do better? How did we not do it right? How could where did we fail at? We don't just say, well, they just didn't work hard enough. No, it's maybe we didn't deliver it hard enough. So that's our first approach to it. So we want to check in and make sure that we got our students are first. And
absolutely,
yeah. So that's one of the things I like about that.
All right. So weekly activities. Okay. So just on the specifics, I mentioned these, but just so that you see them on the screen, Wednesday night, 5 p.m. EST, Thursday noon EST. So there'll be a follow-up if anything need to be follow-up from that, or, people just want to hang out and talk about Power Apps and their projects. And then we have this Saturday morning. And I just see us sort of adding to that as time goes on. Whenever, go ahead.
The important thing I think to know in that is that if you can't make them, they're all being recorded. Everything's being recorded. So if you can't make one or all of them, you can just sit back and watch them passively at your time to do it. But if you've got an issue and if you got a problem, then you can post that up in school. We put you into the lineup, and we can actually work on your stuff. And in fact, we've even worked on stuff for people that couldn't make it. They couldn't be there, but their problem was there. And so we sat there, we talked it, and then they could watch the video on it, and they got help that way. So it's kind of cool. Yeah,
it is cool. Yeah. Absolutely. And we've tried to spread these out so they're not the same time every day to accommodate people in different time zones.
Exactly.
Guys, we are truly trying to do everything that we can to make this make sure everybody's winning, and doesn't matter what time zone, what your background is, whatever. We're trying our best to make sure everybody's winning here, and
we're gonna make it happen. Yeah.
I don't believe enough is said out there in the field for developing a professional portfolio. I have many Microsoft certifications. They get me tons of interviews in the past, but what always sells it is my portfolio. And Kurt, I heard you tell somebody your story, your portfolio. I'd love for you to tell that story now.
Yeah, so that was okay. So here's this is real stuff. So I've been programming for a long time on my own, and I was going to school, and I ended up getting a job. One of the instructors there said, "Hey, you know what? You're pretty good at this thing. I got somebody over here that might want to hire you." So I went into an interview, and these people had, it was an engineering firm, and they did work for the Army Corps of Engineers. They did stuff for super professionals, man. Super professionals. And I went in there, and I told him, I said, look, I'm just starting school. I really don't have my degree yet or anything like that. And she said, what have you done? I said, oh, okay. So I had a briefcase with me, and I had all my source code. Now this was back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Isn't that funny how the right question just completely changes everything?
Changes everything. What have you done? And that's the other thing. In our industry, it's more important about what you've done than is your certifications or your degrees.
Credentials, yeah. People expect the credentials like as a baseline.
Yeah,
guys, I do not have a degree. I think having a degree is an asset. That it makes you well-rounded, and I think a lot of people that do have their, but it's not necessarily for a lot of professions it is, but for this type of line of work, it's not required. But
in fact, this engineering firm that I went to work for, the lady that was interviewing me, she ended up being my mentor later on. She had a master's degree in physical education. And then the assistant director there had a master's degree in occupational psychology. And so these people were programmers. These were good programmers. Very good programmers. And so it's just interesting how the degree didn't really matter as much as what you've done. So she asked me, she said, what have you done? And I had this briefcase. And back then it was all fanfold. Remember that old fanfold paper that had the green and white and green and white and green, the alternating line, and it had dot matrix. Yeah. I had it just filled up to where when I opened it up, it just the whole thing just spring loaded out. And I just had probably, 30 or 40 systems that I had written over the years. And I had the source code of all of it in different languages that I written. And she looked at it and she's like, when can you start? She didn't care about all the other stuff. She just cared about when can you start and what have you done? That's what's important here, man. And I guess that portfolio says, are you going to sit around here talking about, can you write a for next loop, or are you going to talk about what you've done? That's everything. And I know you're going somewhere else with that. I could talk about that portfolio a lot, but
it sells. Portfolios sell.
It absolutely does.
They will sell you. They will get you the job. They will get you the freelance gig.
And you're going to show them how to do more of a portfolio than a fanfold dot matrix printout in a briefcase, right? That was my portfolio. Look what your guys' portfolio is going to be.
I show you the way that I do it and what I've found works the best.
That's right.
And I recommend at least 3 projects, and I expect you to do those 3 projects while in our program. So your first project, this all depends on where you're at. Okay. If you've already written 3 to 5 apps, maybe your first project isn't a little small project. As somebody that has absolutely no experience, ever written anything might need to do.
Yeah.
But
some of these labs that we're going to be doing could be considered portfolio material too. I just want to,
very true.
Yeah.
Very true. And what I encourage people to do is to put even if you don't have something in mind, and I give you a great use case scenario type of project to work on, you put your own spin on it. You make it yours. That's why I encourage people to do with my ticketing system. Well, this is my ticketing system. I think it looks nice, but why don't you change it up a little bit and make it more of your style? And so you can do that with any project. But I recommend at least having 3 good solid projects in a portfolio. If you just have 1 or 2, it almost looks like those are your only two, which that might be the case, but you got three. I mean, what happens if somebody shows up with 15 different pieces in their portfolio? Okay, well, that's great. You got 15. Just show me your two best or your three best, you know?
Right.
Uh, so, anyway, portfolios are very important. I think it's a huge key that a lot of people just overlook. They don't really think too much of it, but it's really important that you develop that portfolio. So, achieve Power Apps mastery. Okay. Not only are I mean, we specialize in Power Apps, but we already do have content out there on Microsoft SQL Server. We have material out there on Power Automate, Power BI. So it's not just Power Apps, but you're definitely going to master Power Apps as a tool. But there's some other things you're going to master as well. And this last point, mastering the SDLC. Kurt, what's an SDLC? That sounds fancy.
It is software development life cycle.
Yeah.
It's a mouthful.
So, and we expect you to master this to a level that you could be working beside us in a project or at an employer, or maybe there's a big freelance project and they need a dozen of us.
That is literally our goal, Darren. That's our goal, isn't it? That's our goal. Yep.
Yeah. I get a lot of requests for work, and I would love nothing more than to give I've already, I teach them the proper way according to Darren and Kurt, right? So they've been trained, they have the experience. Who better to give real paying projects than the students that have gone through our program?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you take on new projects, I expect you to hit the ground running and already know how to analyze if Power Apps is the best tool for the job, and how to design it, and really how to knock the socks off of your clients that you're delivering it to. So I expect you to gain the skills, the tools, the competence to serve as a software, even though you don't see yourself as a software developer, or like, coding, that's not me. That's those nerdy guys or whatever. But you're actually going to learn the full life cycle of software development, so that so you can go into an IT type of a project and hang with the best of them, right?
Yeah, it's there's something to be said to be able to walk away knowing that you can go into a boardroom with the confidence of knowing what you're doing, to be the adult in that room, to be able to make those decisions and those choices in the moment with those times because of the experience that you've already got in here. They're going to see it. They're going to see it already. They're going to see the look in your eye when you walk in. The way you walk into that room, you're going to be confident that, hey, I know how to program. I'm a software developer. I am a professional. There's something about that means something, and it's unwritten. It's unspoken, but it's there.
You also get access to all the files, the templates, the cheat sheets, all the materials that I build. You have access to all that. One of the biggest things is the Ultimate Jumpstart Kit, which a lot of people have purchased that over the years and absolutely love it and find it just as important to their projects as I have found it for mine. I never start off a project from scratch. And any type of tool that I have, I always try to develop some starting point. So I am sidestepping a lot of tedious things I do for every single project. I just do it once. I got it saved over here, and there it is.
I think that is the second most slickest thing you've ever done that I've known. I mean, it might be the slickest next to the lotto program that you wrote as a lab. I thought that was some pretty slick stuff that you did in that one. But this one's even slicker than that. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is good stuff right here. This is big.
Yeah. So guys, Kurt, he taught a Visual Basic Level 1 back in 1990. Of course, you were teaching before then, but that's just when I found you. And
Yeah.
then you helped me get my first job working beside you. And then I remember the school asked you to teach a level 2.
Yeah.
And I was buying every single book I can get my hands on about Visual Basic. I love that stuff. And you were developing labs for the level 2. And I was like, Kurt, are you doing Win32 API call? We should build our own button. And you're like, okay.
We did. We did it.
You did
Yeah.
all kinds of wild
He
stuff.
said, we should build our own button. I said, okay, let's go build a button here. That's what we did. Yeah. That was great. It was awesome.
Your first project in that level 2 was a game. We wrote a game for the first lab, and it was so fun.
Yeah.
And you would always be challenging me, and I'd buy some new book and read it and try to impress Kurtaroo, and you throw it back at me. It's like, what's that?
Trying to snatch the pebbles away from me.
Trying to prove myself as a young man.
Yeah.
I tried to impress you with that first one. And man, I wish I had that source code.
Yeah,
that was a really cool little thing that
all done in bitmaps. All done with
wise operators and
wise operators. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm hoping happens here. I'm hoping that's what happens here with the students here. I'm hoping that they're going to grab a hold of these labs and they're just going to outslick us. They're going to come out. They're going to come out here with some really cool stuff, and their minds are going to get going, and they're going to find really good ways to solve problems. I can't wait to see some of this.
You know what excites me, Kurt? Every single one of our students that has come on, I know that all the students coming in from here on out, they all have their own skill sets and background that they're bringing to the table.
Absolutely.
We have some fellow trainers in our program. We have some that are, that have a background in project management or business analysis, data analysis. Some people come with a lot of skills coming from Azure or AWS, Amazon Web Services. Everybody's got a little bit of some other knowledge they're bringing in, and as we're collaborating, you and I we're bringing all the Power Apps stuff in here, but sometimes these other students that are coming in, it's like, oh, well, I know that over, let's say in Azure, you can tie into this and it makes this part easier or whatever. It's like, oh, that's interesting.
It's different approaches.
No one person can know it all. I mean, even in the medical field, I could have when I was in that hospital, I had a surgeon and there would be a specialist for like an infection. So I'd see a different doctor. It's like, okay, well, here's a surgeon. He went through how many years of medical school and he doesn't know what this guy knows.
Right.
Like there's all kinds of specialties. One person just can't know it all.
And we've also got students in there. I don't want to scare away the students that are just getting started by listening to these guys. Yeah, these guys are from Amazon Web Services and Azure and all this. We've also got We've also got students that have experience teaching, have experience truck driving. We got truck drivers out there. We got quality control people out there. But they all even at that level, all those types of careers, they bring something to the table too, in a way of thinking about a problem and a way of thinking about a project.
Absolutely. Let's say I found a client that needs an app written to keep track of all their shipments coming in on trucks. So I know that there might be somebody named Ron on our, in the community. I'm like, Ron, I'm writing this for a trucking company. They've got this and this. Can you look over my proposal that I'm about to send them? I'm like, oh, you need to say that you're going to take care of this and this. Yeah. Because it's really important in their industry, and they probably didn't even mention it to you. I'm like, wow, Or let's say somebody who is maybe a little bit younger, on the younger side, like my son Blake. His first project might be to keep track of all of his characters that he's developed inside of a game, and there's all kinds of stats and all that type of stuff. And for some people that's very valuable. Everybody brings some type of background, some asset. you know.
Maybe a foundry worker that knows how to handle create and cut sleeves can write programs to cut sleeves at different for molds and whatever.
Now, when you say sleeve, I'm thinking about the sleeve on my shirt. Is that what you're talking about?
No, sleeves for molds though. Some people have to go look that up. Go Google that.
Yeah, I think somebody we were just talking the other day. They said, "Yeah, I come from a manufacturer background." Okay, well, you can't believe how many apps are written for the manufacturing field. So that type of information, that type of understanding and insight is really valuable.
Very valuable. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of the benefit of being in this community, I know that I can vouch for my students that have been through the program because I know that I've taught them right, I've taught them in a certain way, and they've been evaluated to meet a certain level, and they've met a certain quality level within building their portfolios, their applications.
Yep.
Okay. So I am proud to be able to recommend you to business owners, departments looking for some freelance work or looking to hire people. I'd be proud to say, yeah, I've got a whole directory listing. And right now I'm planning on having this as a Power Pages or Power Apps Portals is being rebranded as Power Pages, but we'll read in from a Dataverse, and that you guys will pick what information if you want to be listed in the professional directory of Power Apps developers. You could check off or list off all the skills that maybe you already come with a bunch of Power BI, Power Automate, or you picked up those skills during the program. You can list off all the skills that you want to be known for. So there's a lot of things to be experienced and realized, almost like a serendipity along the way. I have a vested interest in your success overall, and I'm going to do whatever I can to help you guys out because that's what I enjoy. I like seeing people succeed.
Yeah. If I could just kind of put an exclamation mark on, I just want to expect, I don't even know if I can say it right. I don't know if I can come up with the right words, but I got this. All my life, I've been wanting to teach tech at a level, the programming, the software development, the database structures, that kind of tech at a level. And I was doing that in the community colleges. You went through that community college process, and you are basically a validation of that process works. And I've always wanted to do it. Now, here's the thing, though, Darren. You took it to a whole nother level because you left. You didn't even know you were doing it. It's just crazy how it works. It's just crazy how life works. But you spent 20 years or more in the corporate world, learning and getting stronger, and learning and getting stronger, going through those keys that we talked about up there in the beginning, the going it alone, the pitfalls, all those things.
Yeah.
And then you spent the last 5 or 6 years in the YouTube platform, and you've been working this. So now you've got this thing from the beginning of how to really do it right. You've got the experience, and then now you've got the way of the world now with the media being the way it is now with the YouTube and the Twitter, all those kinds of online learning, the virtual learning, right? And somehow I think between the two of us, more you than me, you bridged that gap, and we now have you've taken that beautiful way of learning back then, and you put it into the virtual process. And I think there's been a lot of attempts at it out there. I think many universities have tried it. I think many private training companies have been trying to do this. I think you got it. I think this is it right here, man. I think this is really good stuff, and I'm really excited. I just can't tell you how excited I am about this.
Yeah.
Yep.
I tell you what ultimately I wanted to build was what I wish, right before Power Apps, I wanted to learn Angular as a technology.
Yeah.
And I had a hard time with it,
Angular is nasty.
So if I'm going to learn something new and I'm having a hard time with it, this is the type of program that I would want for any type of topic. If I wanted to learn how to play a musical instrument, You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
want to learn from somebody knows what's going on.
Right.
They know where I've been, where I want to go. They can map out a plan for me. They're going to give me feedback. They're going to give me lessons. They're going to give me songs to play. Or if I have an idea for a song, I want them to help me give structure to that song and make it a good song. Make sure I have a
Yeah.
bridge and a chorus and verses. And, um, you
And
know,
yeah, I'm so go ahead and finish your thought there, Dan. So
yeah. My whole thought is I want to create a system that distilled everything down to what I learned to be successful from you, but also what you just mentioned was, I mean, back then you didn't have this type of stuff. You
no,
had
no,
whiteboards
yeah,
and you'd go to a physical college
yeah,
and there were I mean, the internet was around, but Kurt, I mean, I remember it was the web 1.0, right?
it was. It was a way.
um, there wasn't all this online learning, and I mean, YouTube wasn't around,
No,
you know. Um, but yeah, so anyway, that was
and
pretty much my thought. I wanted to build something that I know that I would want to go through if I were to
right.
pick up anything new,
And there's
you know.
something else I kind of want to put out there too. I think you talked about it earlier, but I just kind of want to push the issue a little bit. You
Mhm.
know, based on your tutoring, when you're going one on one with people, you know, and you're $240 an hour or $250 an hour, it doesn't take you much tutoring to get into the thousands and thousands of dollars. Or if you're working on a program to try to help somebody get them across the finish line, it doesn't take very much time at all. Maybe 20 hours. 20 hours is nothing in programmers' time, right? To get into the thousands of dollars. So I just think about the people who are coming in who are looking at the getting something done quickly and needing somebody to help them with that. Um,
Mhm.
I really think that this is the best bang for the buck. I just believe that this is the best value right here, man. I mean, because you're getting an awful lot of time, a lot of hours of video content and tuition, and mentoring and helping, hands-on helping, um, that you're just not going to be able to get anywhere else. Not for that kind of price. Yeah.
Yeah, well, one thing I did not like about doing one-on-one tutoring um, is there was a vague sense that maybe I'm like nickeling and diming people, like,
Right.
okay, we just
Right.
went past the hour. Do you want to buy a second hour? You know, it's like,
Right.
can we just forget about all that? And let's just solve your problem and let's make an improvement today and let's talk,
Right.
you know. Uh
And let's do it right. Let's do it. Let's get done. Let's not throw a band-aid on it to get it across the finish line. Let's get done right, man. You know?
yeah. And then you talking about the training. I mean, so we're committing to you for a full year. I mean, just looking at some of the classes, it doesn't have to be something like this. Just look at how much a week long class costs, either in your area, online, whatever,
Yeah.
and multiply that by, I don't know, 50. There's 52 weeks in a year, but just say round it down to 50. Be conservative. You know what is that? I mean, according to this, um, of course, since relying on computers so much, I don't do a lot of math in my head anymore. But
It
I
would
mean,
be
like,
$100,000 quickly at $2,000, right?
yeah, back in my day when I was a Microsoft certified trainer, our classes cost 2,000. They're charging 29.75, almost 3,000. But let's just say 2,000, and let's say we don't go 52 weeks. Let's say we just go 50. I
That's
yeah, I
100,000.
don't charge that. I don't charge that amount of money.
Right.
Um,
But just think, and then think about
Not
how
even half
much,
that.
leverage you have at making. How much does it make? How much does a Power Apps programmer make now?
Ah, yeah, it's a great question. I mean, let me
Look
just
it up,
Google it
Aaron.
here.
Look it up. Look it up.
Okay, let me see here. Down my thing here. Actually, a what do you call that? An incognito window is probably the best. So it acts like it doesn't even know me at all, right? Um, okay, so I'm
Right.
going to do a search here for. I need to make sure it's actually visible here, and I'm going to say Average Power Apps salary. Okay, so this is what comes up. Now this might vary based on your area, but guys, even if you're in, let's say you're not in the United States, you're in
Right.
some other country. Well, think about this. You could go create an account on something like Fiverr.com and do the same type of stuff that I've been doing on
Right.
Fiverr for years.
Yeah.
Charging the same amount. So these days with the internet and how things are set up, I don't think living in a certain economy or a certain country makes that big of a difference. Just from the standpoint is you could go on Fiverr.com right now and compete with me. If I give you all my skills, all my templates and everything, what's to keep you from going out there and doing exactly the same thing that really I don't have time to do anymore, because I have more of a passion for teaching than.
But people tend to look at things. Look at things in like the front end. The front end of this thing, there might be an investment in the front end of this thing, and people think, but then they don't look at the back end of that. The back end of that, there's so much potential there. So sometimes, and like we've dealt with some places like from India and Libya, and some of these, the economies are different. And so, but it's still, the economies are not different on Fiverr. They're not different in the world forum.
On an international stage. Yeah.
And if you have the ability to connect to us to watch this thing right here, then you have the ability to connect on the world stage with Fiverr.
Yeah, no matter what country you are, you could be doing work for people in the United States or Canada or the UK.
Yeah.
So if the average salary for somebody here, I don't even know if it has. Well, the top earners are making 150. They're saying the average, if you're an average bear, which sometimes you talk about, Kurt, an average bear is making 100.
We're going to talk a lot about the average bear. Yeah.
But what is that for 1 month? How much money should they be making in 1 month? 1,400. So if you're a Power Apps developer, this is how much you should be making a month.
About 8,000, right? 9,000 a month.
Well, supposedly it's 10,416. But yeah, if you want to be conservative, yeah, sure, 8, 9. So let's say if you made $8,000 a month times 12, you'd be making right under 100,000.
Yeah, I always think in terms of take home. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. It was 10,000. I always, for some reason, I'm always pulling the taxes out. Because they're not mine. They're not mine.
Well, you're a smarter guy than me. Yeah. I should be doing that. But on the high scale, 150 divided by 12. Okay, that's 12,500
a month. That's not bad.
So how much is a system where somebody takes you by the hand and shares with you all the other things that you need to do in order to make that difference in your income? Maybe you make a lot more than that, so maybe that's not that big of a deal to you. But I know, as just a software developer, I was wondering if I could make as much money with Power Apps as I could as a C# developer, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Ultimately, it's about how much do you want to invest in yourself. Are you not worth the chance to be able to make that kind of money? I think everybody is. I think if you're sitting here listening to this video right here, you already have the mindset and the mentality to be able to do this kind of work. And so why not you? Why can't you invest in yourself and make that happen?
And something that was very painful for me to realize in my profession is money is not everything. Nope. A lot of times it has to do with the people that you're working with, having more of a demand than a supply in the industry as it is now. And a lot of time I've experienced as a developer being in IT and technology, but especially now with Power Apps, the supply and demand is so off right now. You've got a lot more choices, So when I said money isn't everything, well, if you don't enjoy this Power App stuff, then I don't want you to enroll. Okay. Yeah. I would recommend you go find something that you do love, So if that is to be a firefighter or to work in the medical field, do what makes
That's
you
what that's
happy, get you up in the morning, right?
Yep, that's the beauty of what we get an opportunity here. I guess I get an opportunity here to work with the people I want to work with. Yeah, I get to pick the people that I want to work with. That's what's so great about this, you know? And I want
Yeah.
to work with those people that are passionate about this, man. That really love Power Apps and just programming in general. You know, maybe you're not even in love with Power Apps yet. Maybe you're forced to have to deal with this Power Apps thing because Microsoft is going this direction, and you've been dealing with C# and C++ and Java and Python
Or
and all
Excel
that,
spreadsheets or
or
Excel
Excel
spreadsheets.
spreadsheets, or maybe you haven't even been doing any of that. Maybe you've been working in IT and it's just been brain draining. It's a grind. IT can be a grind, man, when you're working in systems, and so sometimes maybe you're just trying to get. But if you're passionate about trying to learn something new, that's the goal. That's the goal. You're passionate about what you're trying to do here, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If we meet with you and you're like, yeah, I have a Power Ups project coming up, and I just get a sense that you don't like it, I'm going to tell you, not only is this probably not a good fit for you, because
Right.
what I found, the most successful students, they take action,
Right now,
and
right away.
make movement going forward with whatever they're
Yep.
dealing with. But they also they have an excitement. I love software development because it allows me to use my creativity, and I'm constructing or building something.
Yeah.
But if this is not, if this doesn't excite you in the least bit, then I'd recommend you find something that does.
And that's so cool. This platform is so that we're working with now, this accelerator program. Every student in there, the place, I tell you what, office hours, there's electricity whenever we get together. There's just electricity in the air, man. I mean, everybody's just excited and they're on fire for this thing. Um, it's very cool to see a group of people all trying to get together to try to do something like this, and all have that same passionate goal. They just get excited about everything, man.
Kurt, whenever I would at night, so you taught at night, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
after your classes, I'd walk out to my car. It was dark, and I would get in my car, and um, I remember some of the nights were cold up in the
Illinois.
Midwest. Going
Yeah,
out to my car, I sit down. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? I got to get serious about this, because I felt like in the community, everybody's learning this, and like all their brains are turning on. You're explaining things, people getting excited, and I'm
yeah.
like, oh man, I felt like I was going to miss out if I don't take action, and I love that
You,
element that you had there.
yeah, we had that sense of urgency, and I tell you what, you did it. You did good, and I'm hoping that's going to translate into a whole lot of other people. It's kind of like a pay forward type thing going on here now.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
sort of is.
because it's more than just about money. It's definitely more about than just a job. This is a whole. I don't know what it is. It's just this big thing that's just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so far we've talked to quite a few people all over the globe.
Yeah.
And I
All
just want
over.
to let you know, whoever is watching this right now, obviously there's you got something going on, to sit around and watching this whole thing. And I'm telling you, this individual that has lasted this far in this video I am so interested and exciting in talking to you, learning
Yeah.
about where you've walked, how you got there, what you're going to be doing in Power Apps, what you're going to try to be doing on a long-term goal. And I absolutely love, meeting the people that have been following me on YouTube for a while,
Yep.
and love hearing about your story. So.
Yep. Very good.